picture this, right? You are looking at a middle-aged man, and he is wearing this ridiculously expensive tweed coat.
Oh, yeah. An incredibly expensive coat.
Right. And he is standing entirely alone in this muddy, just completely fogged out ditch.
Just absolute peak Gothic drama.
Exactly. And he is screaming at the top of his lungs at a giant black horse.
Naturally. As one does.
Right, as you do. And then, in this glorious, agonizing slow motion, he raises a heavy revolver to his own temple.
Here we go.
He closes his eyes, he pulls the trigger, and click, it is totally empty.
I gotta say, that is the loudest click in the entire history of television.
100%. Because this was supposed to be, you know, the most dramatic, soul-shattering cliffhanger in British TV history. Millions of people have been waiting for this exact moment.
Everyone was tuning in for it.
Yeah, but instead it became something else entirely. I mean, it became the exact moment the most prestigious, stylish crime drama of the decade accidentally turned itself into a complete, unadulterated meme.
It really did. It just broke.
It broke. Have you ever loved a piece of media, truly respected it, only to watch it slowly and agonizingly mutate into a giant bass-boosted music video?
It is painful to watch.
It is, because today we are going to chronicle a phenomenon that is honestly staggering. Welcome to the deep dive.
So glad to be here for this one.
And I need to set the ground rules right now for you listening. We are not conducting a solemn academic review today. Like, at all. We are hosting a comedy roast.
We absolutely are. We are putting this thing on the rotisserie today.
Yes.
Because usually, you know, when a great show declines, it's a slow leak. Like a writer leaves, an actor gets bored, and just sort of fizzles out.
Right, a slow death.
Exactly. But this was a spectacular meme-fueled collapse. I mean, it was a rocket intentionally steered directly into the sun.
It really was. So our mission today is to chart the downfall of Peaky Blinders. We are going to explore the mechanics of how a once grounded, gritty, universally respected crime drama about post-World War I Birmingham just mutated into a TikTok punchline.
A literal punchline.
Yeah, and a lifestyle manual for 14-year-old self-proclaimed Sigma males. And eventually, the absolute unmitigated disaster that was the 2026 Netflix movie, The Immortal Man.
Ugh, the movie. And our source stack today is massive. We are looking at Guardian cultural critiques that dissects the whole Sigma mythos.
Great articles.
Yeah, and we pulled some absolutely brutal, just merciless Reddit threads from places like the Peaky Blinders subreddit and my personal favorite, our Circle Jerk Sopranos.
Oh, those are incredible.
They are gold. We're also diving into film reviews that literally compare the franchise's cinematic finale to John Travolta's legendary flop, Gotti.
Which is just the ultimate insult.
It really is. And we're spending a lot of time with video essays documenting the 2022 media hangover and the golden era of funk edits.
Oh, the funk edits. Listen, if you don't know what those are yet, just buckle up. I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, you will understand exactly why some intellectual properties should absolutely be allowed to rest in peace.
Just let them die.
Let them die. So if you're ready, get comfortable. I was joking earlier with the producers that maybe you should put this on to fall asleep for the downfall of Peaky Blinders, like some kind of relaxing ambient track.
That would be terrible for sleep, honestly.
It would. You're going to be laughing too hard. So where does the rot actually start? Like, where is the pivot point?
Well, to really understand this collapse, we have to pinpoint the exact moment the show lost its mind. And almost all of our critical sources, you know, from the TV reviewers to the hardcore Reddit purists, they all point to the exact same place.
Which is?
The season 5 finale.
Right. Episode title, Mr. Jones. And I want you to visualize where the show was at this point, because this is truly where they crossed the Rubicon. Up until season 5, Peaky Blinders definitely had its moments of extreme theatricality, right?
Oh, sure. It was always very stylish.
Very stylish. But it was always grounded in a gritty sense of physical danger. Like, the bullets felt real. The razor blades in the caps felt real. But critics universally flagged this specific episode as the exact moment Peaky Blinders lost its mind. They completely traded narrative logic for aesthetic slapstick farce.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. Aesthetic over logic. And nowhere in the entire history of television is this more obvious than Thomas Shelby's assassination plan.
Oh my gosh, the plan.
The plan for the fascist politician, Oswald Mosley. It is an unnecessarily complicated, absolute Rube Goldberg machine of a plan.
I am so glad we are starting here because I want to spend a minute just detailing this plan. When you say it out loud, it is pure comedy gold.
It really is.
So Tommy Shelby is supposed to be this Brilliant, pragmatic, street-smart criminal mastermind, right? The guy who supposedly outsmarts everyone.
The ultimate strategist.
Right. Now, if you are a pragmatist and you want to assassinate a political rival in the 1920s, what do? You corner him in an alleyway, you poison his whiskey in a private room, you do something quiet, contained, and controllable.
Obvious.
But no. Tommy decides he needs to execute this guy on stage in front of thousands of screaming people.
Makes perfect sense.
Totally. And to do it, he decides to break a severely traumatized, highly unstable World War I sniper named Barney out of a high-security psychiatric asylum.
Right, because clearly when you need a precision shot taken in a highly chaotic environment, you definitely want to use an unmedicated, unpredictable asylum inmate.
Oh, for sure.
A guy suffering from severe shell shock. That's just management 101.
Exactly. It's brilliant leadership. So he breaks Barney out. He smuggles this highly unstable man into Bingley Hall, which is just packed with thousands of fascist supporters and police.
Wall-to-wall people.
And he puts Barney in a spotlight booth hovering high above the crowd. Then, just to make sure the sniper shot goes totally unnoticed, which, by the way, is physically impossible inside an echoey hall,
Completely impossible.
Tommy stages a massive fake communist riot right outside the venue as a distraction.
Because why not add a riot?
Right. And if that wasn't enough moving parts, he has Aberama Gold, his hitman ally, coordinate a backstage stabbing of a completely different guy, Jimmy McCavern.
Right.
At the exact same second, the sniper fires his rifle.
I really want the listener to think about the mechanics of this. It's like a 50-step domino chain. If one person is late, if one guard looks up, if someone drops a penny on the floor, the entire Shelby empire instantly collapses.
Boom, gone.
It is so over-engineered that it completely defies all human logic. You have a riot outside, a speech inside, a sniper in the rafters, and a guy with a knife in the wings. And they're all supposed to synchronize to the millisecond.
Without walkie-talkies, it's 1929.
Exactly.
And, I mean, it gets so much worse when you look at how the plan actually fails, because this brings us to the infamous teleporting ninja.
Yes. The invisible teleporting assassins. This is where the physics of the show just absolutely shatter.
Okay, visualize the setup. We have Barney up in the rafters in this tiny enclosed spotlight booth. He has his sniper rifle pointed at Mosley's head.
Tension is high.
He is literally counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2. And at exactly second .01, a completely silent assassin materializes out of nowhere and shoots Barney in the head with a silenced pistol.
Let's break down the logistics of that for a second.
Please do.
This assassin somehow bypassed the perimeter police. Then he bypassed the fascist black shirt security on the floor. He climbed up into the rafters of a massive hall, located the exact sealed pitch black spotlight booth.
In the dark.
Opened the door without making a single sound, and executed a perfect stealth kill, all within a microscopic window of time.
It's unbelievable. And wait, simultaneously, backstage, Aberama Gold is creeping up behind McCavern with a knife. And out of nowhere, another ninja assassin teleports directly behind Aberama in a dark hallway, stabs him repeatedly, and just vanishes into the night without a trace.
Like magic.
It requires the audience to believe that an elite squad of supernatural stealth operatives slipped into a heavily guarded venue and executed perfectly synchronized stealth kills in pitch blackness.
It's totally immersion breaking. You go from watching a historical crime drama about Birmingham bookmakers to watching a Marvel movie where the villains literally have superpowers.
It is exactly like watching a multiplayer video game where the enemy team is using wall hacks.
Wait, wall hacks?
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't play first-person shooters, a wall hack is a cheat code that lets a player see exactly where their enemies are through solid walls.
Oh, I see.
That is literally the only logical explanation for how these assassins found Barney and Aberama in the dark in a venue that size. They had cheat codes.
They absolutely had cheat codes.
And the timeline, oh my gosh, we have to talk about the timeline because it makes the whole thing even more hilarious.
But you mean the speed of light Billy Grade phone call?
Yes, because how did these assassins even know to be there in the first place? The entire failure of Tommy's massive multi-million-dollar operation hinges on his younger brother, Finn Shelby, being functionally brain dead.
Pretty much.
Finn casually drops a wad of cash in front of a guy named Billy Grade at the betting shop. He mentions offhand that, oh, a fascist is getting shot tonight, and just walks out of the room.
Just leaves him there.
Yeah. Billy looks at the money, looks at the door, and picks up the phone.
And this is where the timeline completely compresses into absurdity.
It has to be, what, a 10-minute window?
Max.
Finn drops the hint. Billy makes a phone call to, well, we find out later it's the IRA, but regardless, In what feels like 10 minutes, this mysterious anti-peaky faction receives a vague phone call.
A very vague call.
And from that single phone call, they deduce the entire operational blueprint of a highly classified assassination at a massive rally.
Naturally.
They dispatch a team across the city of Birmingham. That team arrives at the venue, infiltrates it without being seen, locates a hidden sniper in the ceiling, locates a hitman backstage, and perfectly deploys tactical countermeasures just in time to stop the trigger pull.
It's logistically impossible. Like, did Billy Grade call a 247 hotline for Teleporting Assassins Incorporated? Do they just have guys waiting on motorcycles with silenced pistols and blueprints of Bingley Hall? The show completely abandoned its grounded street-level tension and just replaced it with comic book logic.
And this brings us back to that ditch, the absolute masterpiece of unintentional comedy, the famous foggy field climax.
Right, because Tommy's plan fails, and he completely loses his grip on reality.
The fog machine on that set was working overtime. I mean, the dial was turned to maximum density. You couldn't see 5 feet in front of you.
It was a wall of white.
Tommy wanders out into this heavily misty field, and out of nowhere, a ghost hallucination of his dead wife, Grace, appears. And she's standing next to a giant, menacing black horse.
Subtle.
Very subtle. It's Gothic theater dialed up to 1,000%, and Tommy just starts screaming into the mist in slow motion.
Now, compare this to truly elite storytelling, right? Think about The Sopranos or Mad Men. When Tony Soprano or Don Draper suffer psychological breakdowns, it is handled with quiet, devastating realism.
Right. It feels real.
It makes your stomach hurt. But this scene, it felt like an edgy teenager's poetry notebook just brought to life with a massive BBC budget.
It really did.
It was designed purely as a cheap cliffhanger. They wanted people tweeting, "Oh my God, did Tommy Shelby just kill himself?" But no one in the audience actually believed the main character of a global franchise was going to blow his brains out before the next season was even greenlit.
Obviously not. But the retcon in season 6 is what makes this the funniest moment in TV history, because you wait almost 3 years to find out what happens after Tommy pulls the trigger on himself. And season 6 opens by revealing that his brother, Arthur, had secretly walked over earlier that evening entirely off screen and emptied all the bullets from Tommy's gun.
Which completely recontextualizes the entire season 5 finale.
Exactly. If you go back and watch that highly dramatic, supposedly soul-shattering cliffhanger with the new context provided by season 6, you are no longer watching a tragic hero meeting his end.
Not at all.
You are watching a middle-aged man standing alone in a muddy ditch, screaming hysterically at a horse, putting a gun to his head, and confidently pulling the trigger on an empty chamber that just goes click.
It is literally Mr. Bean levels of comedy.
It is. TV purists watched that and thought, well, okay, the writers have completely lost the plot. The show is broken.
But, and this is where the cultural footprint of the show gets truly fascinating, while the TV critics were groaning and rolling their eyes, a completely different demographic was watching that exact same man screaming in the fog, and they thought, this is the coolest, most aspirational thing I have ever seen.
Yes, and that brings us to the sad memification of Thomas Shelby, the 2022 Sigma male peak. We have to talk about how 15-second internet edits completely stripped the soul out of post-World War I Birmingham.
Right. And to understand this, you really have to look at the psychology of the 2022 media hangover. We were coming out of prolonged lockdown isolation, right?
Yeah, everyone was stuck inside.
You had this massive, bizarre echo chamber on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where young, isolated men were desperately looking for aspirational figures. They were looking for control in a world that felt incredibly chaotic.
Makes sense.
And they latched on to Thomas Shelby. But to make him their idol, they had to intentionally misread every single thing about him.
It is honestly a case study in media distortion, because what is the actual text of Peaky Blinders? Like, the real story is about a hollowed out, deeply broken shell of a man.
Yes.
Tommy is suffering from severe, debilitating PTSD from the tunneling trenches of France. We are talking about genuine historical shell shock. He has chronic insomnia.
Terrible insomnia.
He self-medicates with massive amounts of alcohol and opium. He is haunted by grief and active suicidal ideation. And most importantly, his ambition, his relentless hustle literally leads to the brutal death or total alienation of almost everyone he has ever loved.
Which is the whole point of the show.
Exactly. The show, at its core, is a tragedy. It's a massive flashing neon warning sign about the cost of violence.
But it's one of the clearest modern examples of audience misreading. right up there with people who idolize Tyler Durden in Fight Club or Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
Totally.
But the internet algorithm doesn't care about narrative context. The algorithm only cares about retention and aesthetics.
Right. I mean, think about the last time you saw a TV show trend on your phone. You probably didn't see a complex, nuanced character arc.
Nope.
You saw a highly stylized 10-second slow-motion clip. And that is exactly what happened here. The internet took Tommy's emotional numbness, which, by the way... They called it discipline. They turned a dying man's trauma responses into an aspirational lone wolf business manual for teenagers.
They completely erased his vulnerability.
Oh.
The edits only focused on the coal stairs, the slow motion walking through sparks, the bespoke suits, and of course, the cigarette smoking.
So much smoking.
And they heavily manipulated the audio to reinforce this aggressive, untouchable vibe.
This is the era of the funk edit.
Oh, the funk edit.
For anyone who somehow missed this trend, a funk edit is a specific type of short-form video. Funk is a subgenre of electronic music that relies heavily on Memphis rap samples, overwhelming bass, and these really aggressive cowbell melodies.
It sounds very dark, very fast.
Very menacing. So creators would take a black and white, high-contrast clip of Cillian Murphy smoking a cigarette, slow it down, sync it to a massive bass drop, and then slap a fake quote over it.
The quotes are the most depressing part of this internet afterlife, because they weren't even lines from the show.
Not even close. You couldn't scroll through your phone without hearing this deep, AI-generated monotone voice reading something Thomas Shelby never, ever said.
It was wild.
Imagine this over a heavy bass-boosted beat, right? It's like, don't trade your focus for a woman's attention. Loyalty is earned. Stay silent and build an empire.
Oh my God, yes.
It sounds like it was written by a 14-year-old trying to sell you a dropshipping course.
It really does. And it completely dilutes the actual dialogue of the show, which was written by Stephen Knight and was often quite poetic, rooted in Irish and Romani mythology and 1920s class struggle.
Which is heavy stuff.
But it created this bizarre secondary reality. Millions of people were fangirling over a version of a character that only existed in algorithmic phone edits. You had teenagers walking into barbershops asking for the Peaky Blinder haircut so they could increase their grind set.
So how did the actual creators react to this? Because Cillian Murphy and Stephen Knight must have been watching their traumatized war veteran turn into a mascot for crypto bros in real time.
They were horrified. I mean, Cillian Murphy is a notoriously quiet, low-key, very thoughtful actor. And he was constantly getting cornered in interviews about this.
I can imagine.
He explicitly stated multiple times that Tommy is an exhausting, terrifying, deeply damaged person. Both he and Knight repeatedly went on the record to say that Tommy is not a hero, he is not a role model, and you should absolutely not try to emulate him. He's a cautionary tale.
But the internet didn't care. Once the algorithm decides you are the face of the Sigma male movement, you just belong to the internet.
You're trapped.
But as with all things on the internet, the trend eventually burned itself out. We need to hold a brief moment of silence for the funeral of the flat cap and why nobody takes the lone wolf seriously anymore.
The life cycle of an internet meme is ruthless. By 2024 and moving into 2025, the Sigma trend was ultimately killed by Gen Alpha assimilation.
This is a universal truth, right? The absolute fastest way to kill an edgy, dangerous, secret internet subculture is to hand it to 10-year-olds on a school bus.
Yep.
Once middle schoolers started calling each other Sigma on Roblox, it was completely over.
You had kids using the word Sigma right alongside terms like skibbity, which, for the uninitiated, is just a nonsense meme word that originated from a video of a singing head in a toilet.
Right.
And mewing, which is this bizarre trend where kids press their tongues to the roof of their mouths to try and give themselves a sharper jawline.
Right. They talk about their aura points. You just cannot pretend you're a brooding, dangerous lone wolf gangster from the 1920s when your entire aesthetic is being yelled across a middle school cafeteria next to a kid eating chicken nuggets and talking about skibbity toilets.
It's impossible.
The vibe died a miserable, highly publicized death.
It did. But here is the real tragedy for the actual television show. The memification was annoying for clicks, but it wouldn't have been fatal if the show had managed to deliver a phenomenal final season.
That's true.
If season 6 had been a masterpiece of television writing, it could have transcended the TikTok edits. It would have reminded everyone why the show is prestige in the first place.
But it didn't. Which brings us to the season nobody remembers.
Right.
Why Peaky Blinders' final TV chapter faded into complete obscurity. Let's talk about season 6, which dropped in February 2022 after a brutal 31-month pandemic delay.
A huge gap.
And the universal consensus from all our sources, it was just mid. It was a somber slog.
Now, to be fair, we have to acknowledge the tragic real-world context that derailed the production. The loss of Helen McCrory, who played Aunt Polly, was devastating.
It was so sad.
And it left an unfillable structural void in the show. She wasn't just a side character, she was the emotional anchor. She was the family's conscience.
The heart of it all.
She was literally the only person on Earth who could slap Tommy across the face and bring him back to reality. Without her, the family chemistry, the friction that drove the dialogue, it just evaporated.
It totally changed the DNA of the show. Instead of this vibrant ensemble cast of traumatized Romani gangsters sitting around a table, arguing, plotting, and taking on the establishment, you just had Tommy brooding entirely alone in a giant, dimly lit mansion.
Just staring into the middle distance.
Yeah. He was just delivering monologues at people rather than having conversations with them. The pacing completely died.
Yeah.
And the rivalries they set up, they went nowhere.
No payoff.
Michael Gray, who was hyped up to be the ultimate antagonist, the new generation coming for the throne, he spent 80% of the final season stuck in a prison cell in Boston, just glaring at the wall.
And the political conflict with Oswald Mosley, the guy Tommy was trying to assassinate in season 5.
Yeah.
It went absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the writers painted themselves into a historical corner.
Right, because of reality.
Mosley was a real historical figure. He didn't die until 1980. The writers couldn't kill him in the 1930s without completely breaking historical reality. So the central conflict of the final season became this endless zero payoff loop of posturing, vague threats, and long staring contests.
Okay, I want to push back on one of the biggest criticisms of season 6, just to play devil's advocate here. A lot of critics and fans hated Sober Tommy.
Oh yeah, that was controversial.
You know, for 5 seasons, the kinetic, chaotic swagger of the show was fueled by Irish whiskey. Everybody always had a glass in their hand. In season 6, Tommy stops drinking. Now, I have to argue, isn't Tommy giving up alcohol a really brave, realistic writing choice for a man dealing with severe PTSD? Like, why should the writers be penalized for prioritizing a character's mental health journey over looking cool for the audience?
It's a great question, and from a purely psychological standpoint, you're right. It is a realistic step for healing. But from a television pacing and structural standpoint, it was disastrous.
Really?
Yeah, because television relies on kinetic energy. Alcohol in Peaky Blinders wasn't just a beverage, it was a scene partner. It fueled the unpredictability. When Tommy got sober, he became entirely reactive and stoic. Look at that famous Boston bar scene in season 6.
Oh, I know exactly what scene you mean.
Tommy walks into this rough, hostile pub in America. He orders a glass of ice water. The locals insult him, pour out his water, and threaten him.
Standard bar fight setup.
Right. But Tommy doesn't raise his voice. He single-handedly beats up 3 men with a knife in a very clinical way, calmly wipes his knuckles with a rag, orders another glass of water, and sips it in total silence.
And how did the audience react to that?
To television critics, it felt incredibly hollow. It didn't feel like a man struggling with sobriety. It felt like a superhero movie scene.
I see.
It felt choreographed and emotionally dead.
Oh.
But to the 15-second edit channels, that scene was the holy grail.
Oh, I bet.
It was the ultimate cold alpha fantasy. They saw a man with zero emotional reactions, pure focus, just physically dominating his enemies without breaking a sweat. It just fed the worst parts of the algorithm.
But whether he was drinking water or whiskey, the biggest structural flaw of season 6 is what fans call the movie prelude problem. How season 6 forgot to be an actual final season.
This is the real sin.
I want you, the listener, to imagine this. You wait almost 3 years for a highly anticipated series finale. You sit down, you invest 6 hours of your life into watching this season, and as the final credits roll, you realize you didn't get an ending. You got a 6-hour movie trailer for a film that won't come out for another 4 years.
Exactly. A final season is supposed to contract, right? It is supposed to bring the character arcs to a close and resolve the central themes.
Wrap things up.
Instead, season 6 expanded. They spent so much runtime setting up future World War II plot lines, introducing brand new characters like Tommy's long-lost son, Duke, which felt like a daytime soap opera twist.
Totally did.
And maneuvering pieces on the board, that they forgot to actually conclude the story they had been telling for a decade. They just kicked the can down the road to a feature film.
And the timing of this failure couldn't have been worse. Let's talk about being eclipsed by 2022 classics. How shows like Better Call Saul and Severance made Peaky Blinders feel entirely mid.
The timing was brutal.
If you look at what was airing on television at the exact same time season 6 dropped, prestige TV viewers were being absolutely spoiled with masterclasses in writing.
The contrast in writing quality became impossible to ignore. You had Better Call Saul delivering its final season, which is an absolute masterclass in tension, consequence, and meticulous character logic. Every single action had a realistic reaction.
Exactly.
You had Severance blowing people's minds with its tight puzzle box narrative. You had The Bear redefining how anxiety and trauma could be portrayed on screen in a kitchen.
Side by side with those heavy hitters, Peaky Blinders felt like a relic moving in slow motion. Better Call Saul is writing incredibly tense, multi-episode arcs about a lawyer trying to secretly swap out some legal documents without getting caught.
The stakes felt so real.
The tension is agonizing because it's grounded in reality. Meanwhile, Peaky Blinders is relying on telepathic villains, ghost hallucinations, and endless slow-motion walking montages to fill time.
And this stark contrast didn't just annoy TV critics who write for The Guardian. It triggered one of the funniest, most ruthless rivalries on the internet.
Oh, I've been waiting for this part. We have to talk about Gabagool versus Flatcaps. How our circle Jerk Sopranos roasted Peaky Blinders to death.
It's amazing.
Now, if you aren't familiar with this specific corner of Reddit, our circle Jerk Sopranos is a community of hardcore Sopranos fans who communicate almost entirely in quotes from the show.
Literally just quotes.
They treat every other crime drama like a target for mockery, but the release of Peaky Blinders' week final season, and eventually the movie, triggered a full-scale meme war. They relentlessly mocked Peaky Blinders as a pygmy thing in Birmingham.
It's a hilarious rivalry,
No.
but it actually highlights a really deep literary critique. Real prestige TV exposes shallow writing. If you compare the two shows, The Sopranos relies on deep psychological realism. You have these lethal mobsters, but they are petty, they're hypocritical, they complain about who ate the last of the gravy, they have panic attacks over ducks swimming in their backyard pool, and they deal with the realistic, boring decay of their institutions.
They feel like real guys from New Jersey.
Right. Peaky Blinders relies on absolute swagger, perfectly timed rock and roll needle drops, and Cillian Murphy looking immaculate while exhaling tobacco smoke in a cool hat.
The memes that came out of this contrast are incredible. The users on Circle Jerk Sopranos would take iconic, branded HBO quotes and use them to completely destroy Stephen Knight's theatrical writing. Let's recount some of these, because I was crying laughing reading the source threads.
You have to start with the Phil Leotardo meme.
Yes. Okay, so in The Sopranos, there is a ruthless New York boss named Phil Leotardo, and he famously rants that his estimation of a man just plummeted when he sees someone cry at a wedding.
It's a critique of toxic old-school masculinity.
Exactly. So the Reddit users weaponized this. Every single time Tommy Shelby would cry in a field or dramatically hallucinate a white horse or scream into the fog, the Sopranos fans would screenshot it and post. My estimation of Tommy Shelby as a man just plummeted.
It's so dismissive.
It is.
And then there are the Silvio Dante memes. Silvio is Tony Soprano's consigliere, and he constantly gets furious about anti-Italian discrimination. He thinks the media is always out to get Italians.
Right.
So the Reddit users will post a picture of Silvio screaming, "It's anti-Italian discrimination." They take a shell-shocked guy from 1919 and use him to sell drop shipping courses to 14-year-olds.
Oh my gosh, I am dying. That is just crazy. We're with the blinders. It's so funny because applying Tony Soprano's suburban petty cynicism to Tommy Shelby's brooding gothic drama just shatters the illusion completely.
It pops the bubble.
But there is a real tragedy underneath the jokes. One of the highest upvoted posts on the subreddit was simply titled, "We thought he was the next Tony Soprano."
And that is the saddest realization in TV history. That's the crux of it. The fans initially wanted a deeply flawed, realistic anti-hero. They wanted a British Walter White or Tony Soprano.
Yeah, they wanted depth.
But the sheer theatricality of Peaky Blinders, the reliance on style over substance, made it incredibly vulnerable to that blue-collar Jersey cynicism. To fans of true prestige television, Tommy Shelby isn't a tragic figure in the vein of Walter White. He's TikTok prestige. He's a comic book character wearing tweed.
But you know, this rivalry, this mockery, was largely confined to internet forums and Reddit threads. It was an inside joke until, that is, the absolute nail in the coffin arrived. The moment The Sopranos and Breaking Bad fans felt entirely 100% validated in their criticism.
Right. We have to talk about the 2026 feature film, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man.
Oh boy. This was supposed to be the grand finale, the redemption arc. Directed by Tom Harper, set in 1940 during the WWII Blitz. And it was a catastrophe. Was this Felina in Birmingham? How copying Breaking Bad sealed Peaky Blinders' fate?
It's a fascinating failure because you can look at the corporate strategy and see exactly what Netflix and the creators were trying to do. They saw how Vince Gilligan used the movie El Camino to perfectly wrap up Jesse Pinkman's story after Breaking Bad ended.
Flawless execution.
They saw the finale episode Felina tie up every loose end for Walter White. And they thought, well, we can do that for Tommy Shelby. We can print money with a legacy sequel.
But instead of a masterclass in consequence and narrative closure, they delivered Discount Heisenberg. How Tommy Shelby copied Walter White's homework and completely failed the assignment. I saw a review that summed it up perfectly. When you order El Camino on Wish, you get the Immortal Man.
Because they ran right into the structural limits of the medium. A typical season of Peaky Blinders spent 6 hours slowly building tension, establishing gang maneuvers, and letting characters breathe.
You need that time.
You cannot squeeze multiple rival factions, a complex father-son conflict, covert WWII spy operations, and massive historical stakes into a 112-minute runtime. It is physically impossible without breaking the rule of show, don't tell.
Which meant the movie was just a rushed mess of heavy exposition. Characters literally standing in rooms, looking at each other, and explicitly stating their motivations out loud like they were reading Wikipedia summaries of their own lives.
It was so lazy.
We had bizarre Nazi counterfeit schemes that made no sense, and instant, unearned family tragedies that were resolved in 10 minutes.
And the character assassinations. The fandom on the Peaky Blinders subreddit went into a state of collective grieving. The decisions made in this script were baffling.
Let's list the unforgivable sins that outraged the viewers, because there are so many. First of all, you have Tim Roth, a phenomenal actor playing this absolute cartoonish, mustache-twirling Nazi villain.
Such a waste of talent.
And to do that, they completely ignored the 10-year setup of Sam Claflin's character, Oswald Mosley. Mosley was supposed to be the ultimate boss, the fascist specter haunting the Shelby family, and he just vanishes from the narrative so Tim Roth can scowl in a bunker.
It makes the entire season 5 and 6 conflict completely pointless. And then you have Barry Keoghan's character, Duke, who was revealed to be Tommy's illegitimate son at the end of season 6.
Right, Duke was hyped up to be this legendary, ruthless heir to the Shelby empire, the guy who was going to take the family into the next generation. And how is he written in the movie? He acts like a petty, unsophisticated 10-year-old street thief.
He's just annoying.
He has no organization, he has no master plans, he constantly gets played for a fool by much smarter characters, and he spends half the movie just throwing temper tantrums.
But the absolute worst offense, the specific scene that completely broke the fandom's brain, was Arthur's death.
Oh my God, I get genuinely angry just thinking about this from a writing perspective. Tommy Shelby murdering his own brother Arthur with his bare hands in a drunken rage.
It was unbelievable.
Arthur, the most loyal, tortured, ride-or-die character in the entire history of the show. The guy who suffered more for Tommy's ambition than anyone else. Tommy killing him. It is so completely out of character that it feels like fan fiction written by someone who hates the show.
Pure shock value.
It was done purely for cheap, visceral shock value because they didn't know how else to raise the emotional stakes in a 2-hour window. And then his sister Ada randomly dying in a bombing raid on top of it. It felt like they were just clearing the bird to set up a cheap spinoff with brand new actors.
That is a textbook definition of franchise bloat.
Yeah.
They willingly destroyed the original ensemble, the core family dynamic that gave the show its soul for a decade, just to force a tragic cinematic ending and attempt to pass the torch to a new generation of characters that the audience actively disliked.
I have to push back on the studio agreed here, speaking directly to you, the listener. Think about the restraint it takes to end a great story. Vince Gilligan finished Jesse Pinkman's story in El Camino. He made sure the character had peace, and then he walked away.
He knew when to stop.
He let the universe rest. Why couldn't Netflix and Stephen Knight do the same? Why couldn't they just let Tommy ride off on that white horse at the end of season 6? Yes, season 6 was flawed, but at least it was an ending. This is the danger of not leaving well enough alone. They ruined a 10-year legacy just to squeeze one more subscription cycle out of the IP.
Which is exactly why the fans and critics now refer to it as the Gotti of British television.
The ultimate insult.
It really is. Do you remember John Travolta's Gotti movie from 2018?
Unfortunately, yes.
It famously sits at a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. He was universally panned. But the marketing campaign for that movie, famously and desperately, tried to pivot by blaming the reviewers. Their slogan was literally, "Audiences loved Gotti, critics put out the hit."
Yes, the greatest cope in cinema history.
The hardcore fans who blindly defended The Immortal Man used that exact same coping mechanism on Twitter and Reddit. They were posting, "You just don't understand Tommy's mindset. The critics don't get the darkness of the 1940s."
Oh, come on.
But the reality is, the critics understood it perfectly.
Yeah.
The movie turned a once-grounded, brilliant crime saga into a disjointed, bass-boosted music video with Nazis. It had forced tough guy swagger, abysmal pacing, and an overwhelming, arrogant belief that showing Cillian Murphy wearing a nice coat and scowling into a camera somehow makes up for a total lack of script structure.
It is just devastating if you were a fan of the early seasons, when you remember how tight and claustrophobic and brilliant season 1 and season 2 were. So let's look back at this whole journey. We started in the muddy, gritty, terrifying streets of post-WWI Birmingham, where the tension felt real, the trauma was treated with respect, and the danger felt grounded.
The golden era.
Then we hit the season 5 finale, where telepathic ninja assassins and a man screaming at a horse marked the exact moment the writers traded logic for aesthetics.
Then came the media hangover. The depressing internet afterlife of AI voiceovers and Sigma grindset memes that completely misinterpreted the profound tragedy of the show. They turned a suicidal, traumatized war veteran into a drop-shipping mascot for teenagers on Roblox.
Followed by the somber, directionless slog of season 6. We saw the pacing die. We mourned the tragic, real-world loss of Helen McCrory, and we watched the show get completely eclipsed by genuine prestige TV masterpieces like Better Call Saul.
It couldn't compete.
We watched The Sopranos fans mercilessly and accurately roast the shallow writing, pointing out the TikTok prestige of it all. And finally, the Gotti-level disaster of The Immortal Man, where copying Breaking Bad without understanding its structure sealed the fate of the Shelby family forever.
It is a spectacular rise and a very, very messy fall. But I want to leave you with one last thing to chew on, because it connects all these disparate pieces together in a way that I find genuinely unsettling. We talked a lot about the internet edits today, but did the internet actually kill Peaky Blinders?
What do you mean? Are you saying the fans ruined it?
Not the fans, the algorithm. Think about the feedback loop of modern media. If a television show's primary online footprint, its biggest cultural impact, becomes 15-second style over substance TikTok edits, do the writers subconsciously start writing the script to cater to that algorithm?
Oh, wow.
They go on their phones, they see what goes viral. It's not the nuanced conversations about labor strikes or PTSD. It's the slow motion walks, it's the stoic glares, it's the ultra-dramatic, logic-defying cliffhangers. And consciously or subconsciously, they start leaning into it.
That makes so much sense.
Maybe The Immortal Man wasn't just a failure of writing in a vacuum. Maybe it was a perfect, tragic reflection of what the modern, memeified audience accidentally asked for. They engaged purely with the aesthetic, and the studio gave them a 2-hour aesthetic, sacrificing the soul of the story in the process.
They literally wrote themselves into a bass-boosted music video. That is a haunting thought for the future of television. You start out wanting a medical diagnosis, a clean, precise narrative with clear bones and a beating heart, and you end up with a murky, algorithmic mess that you can't even recognize anymore just because a million teenagers liked a video of a guy smoking in slow motion.
It's a cautionary tale for modern writers.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the rubble of the Shelby Empire. It has been a wild ride. Stay curious, question the media you consume, and whatever you do, please do not take life advice from a TikTok funk edit. See you next time.